job, man.
That's right. Thank you very much because we're technically live now. And I could trim it if I wanted to, but we'll get there when we get there. So, this is the 56th episode of the Redacted Culture Cast. And the subject of focus today is still yet moderately undetermined. But in this show, this is the one podcast where we talk about the philosophy of violence and how we think about things and how we deal with ideas and complex problems within gun culture and Americana as a whole. Today, as a guest, I have a guy who didn't start as an American, but he got there because his main quest was strong. So, would you introduce yourself?
G'day. My name's Zach. I've been in the 2A industry for the last 12 plus years. I originally moved to America from Australia back in 2012. Uh, Met an American girl in a lovely little town over in Italy. Played the Skype game backwards and forwards, and one of us figured out who's moving, and I decided I'm going to jump ship and I'm going to come to America.
She was she wasn't from Minnesota, was she?
Negative, negative. She's a good old Ohioan girl, good old Midwest. I've been in the States since then. I've spent a lot of my time in the outdoor industry. That is where I'm definitely well versed in. But then transitioned over into the tactical apparel lines where I've spent a lot of my time working with manufacturers and clothing brands. I worked for a couple of big guys in the industry. Also played on the dark side. I'm now with a firearms company. But yeah, living life to the fullest, loving everything, love the industry, love the people, and very excited to see where currently it's going to go, evolve, change, or if it's just going to stay stagnant.
Well, the one thing that we know about right now is that it's going to be different. That whatever is changing is changing. The thing that we don't know is what specifically is changing and how is that going to play out, especially with things like the brace ruling or
Yep,
just the industry as a whole.
that is true.
The Wizards and the Coast, I think that's a reference to a company that makes board games, but are going to try to depict where the culture is going, where the industry is going. Are they going to try to predict, so not depict, predict? And that's a big question that no one really knows how to answer. But
Mm-hmm.
so I guess, there's this. I'm going to make my first and final joke on this one. There's this idea that kind of gets translated around the world that not Arizona, Australia just wants to kill you. Everything in Australia is poisonous and dangerous.
That
So
is that is true. That is
so
true.
then, is everyone from Australia an outdoorsy person because you have to survive?
Negative,
Oh,
negative. I
okay.
think a lot of what has changed over the last years, and I would like to probably take this back to, let's say, the early 2000s. One of the big things came onto the market, and that was social media.
Hmm.
And I think social media has done a wealth of good, but also a resounding amount of damage.
Hmm.
It's been able to allow people, businesses to reach greater markets, but then it's really trapped us into this tiny little piece of plastic and metal with a battery that we really don't pull our head out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed over the years that kids don't know what the outside is, and when you do take them outside, it's only to get them back inside straight away. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen that in Australia. I used to still love hiking, love camping, love adventuring, and I'm just not seeing a lot of that as of late. It's not a exciting thing anymore to anybody. Adventure, well, I think it is exciting to some. It's just not really being pushed more towards
Yeah,
the younger generation.
there's this idea that I see a little bit that is, people's outdoor activities is performative. Like, for example, I hate camping. I
Mm-hmm.
just hate it. I hate it. I don't enjoy it. It's miserable, just bloody miserable. I don't like camping, but I really enjoy camping when it is a means to some other end. And so if I'm on a motorcycle trip, if I'm on an elk hunt, if I'm going to do something, then camping's great. But just going out of my house to live in a tent for 2 days or 3 days or whatever,
Yeah.
to be in nature, to get sticky and attacked by bugs and eat food that's probably too heavy, um, not fun. But if that is a means to some objective like climbing a mountain or doing a long distance road trip, then it's great.
But why can't every outdoor adventure be like that? Why can't? And I think that's the thing, is just to go camping, just to go camping. I agree with you. Sounds like a lot of work. But if it was to go bag a 14er or go fly fishing for a day up in a stream that you haven't seen, or to explore and do those things, yeah. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what is lacking is, I think, the mentality to create that adventure. So a lot of people are like, oh, camping's too hard. Well, maybe figure out a cool area to go to, make an activity there to do, like go climb a dune or go climb a local peak, and it can be fun. It truly can be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
I think,
said camping's too hard, and when I think camping is like the minimal level. Like you can just,
oh yeah,
like I've camped in gas station parking lots. I've
mm-hmm.
camped in culverts and ditches, um, non-functioning construction sites, on bureau land, in backyards, in people's yards, in city parks and state parks. And so, like, and none of these things are all that fantastical. It's just a nice list to have. But it's not, it quite frankly isn't a, badge of achievement. It's just
Mm-hmm.
camping itself isn't difficult. Camping well might have a little bit of a challenge to it where you're comfortable and you don't wake up worse than life. Um, but setting an objective is a common theme that I think I'm guilty of proposing on
Mm-hmm.
gun culture, which is this idea of it's easiest to figure out the what and the how. It's the hardest challenge that a lot of us are facing are actually is the why.
Yep.
But the optimism bias or just the optimism that comes from that is that it's not a hopeless endeavor. Like,
No.
there is a why that we can each work out, and it tends to be collaborative or community focused. It's not easy to get there, and then once you're there you have to protect it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
For sure.
it's a little bit like Nietzsche, the man with a why will endure anyhow. And now I get to be the pseudo intellectual who quotes Nietzsche but hasn't read enough of him to be informed. Silly
Yeah.
Germans.
No, I think creating the time and the time and the space to get out there and to explore and to further the knowledge into how those things can be, better for the mind and soul. I mean, we always feel better when we put our phones down for a couple of days. Like, just get out into the wild, do something, go for a hike, just truly disconnect to an extent. Um, it's amazing the build up of endorphins and like how you feel when you come back to that, only to get hit in the face like full force the minute you're back into society. But to do more of those things, it's good. People need it. People truly need to do that sort of stuff. And we have such a great country with such a monstrous expanse of space with such beautiful things that just aren't being touched. And I'm not saying like go out there and fuck shit up, but like go out there and enjoy those lands. Like, I mean, I've coming from the outdoor world, like I've spent a lot of time throughout Utah, Arches, Canyonlands, Moab. I've climbed a lot of mountains out there. I've done a lot up through Colorado. It's truly beautiful, and people don't get to see that raw beauty enough. And it's amazing what it'll do. It really is.
There's this I mean, you're familiar with the internet, and I want to get into your conversation on social media specifically, but before we get there, there's this statement that comes up on the internet every once in a while. It's go out and touch grass.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, go out and touch grass. Like, oh, those people need to go out and touch grass. Like,
It's
there's
real.
well, yeah, I mean, I was listening to this I was listening to this guy. I think I was listening to this the other day. I was listening to, I think it was the S2 Underground, who was talking about like different groups of people, and he was doing kind of like a summary of intelligence regarding different peoples and parties that would put a red flag on, or it would put it would flag you as like, these are people that different events, organizations, people, whether it's ranging from the Proud Boys to Antifa to
Mm-hmm.
the KKK to all these different like named organizations or groups
Mm-hmm.
that it almost, it was kind of funny too, because I was listening to it and I was thinking about it in the sense of it kind of felt like a video game where you're playing like Fallout and you're trying to figure out which factions you're going to be a part of, and he had this sort of, there's, I don't think that was his intention, but that's definitely like the feeling I got of like, okay, well, these guys and their uniform is this, and they're, and they tend to value these things, and but then there's a contradiction here, and the recommendation is when you see these people in public, stay away because they do this, or they're being targeted for this, which is a questionable targeting, but whatever. And so the whole point in bringing that up is that, like, there's this idea of the Boogaloo Boys, and like the solution to being a Boogaloo Boy is going out and touching grass. And of course, I'm not like affiliated with what you'd refer to as the Boogaloo Boys, but like up until that point, I didn't think that there was any form of organization of who they were. I just thought it was basically what I experienced in Minneapolis, which was the people who were referred to as Boogaloo Boys were kind of they were on the fringes. They were people who perhaps didn't have a lot of friends and experience and exposure to sunlight, and so it was tragic. I mean, it's not like I'm not like, I don't want to come across too much like I'm just looking down on these people, because unfortunately that's kind of what's the reality of it. But now where I'm at, and where I'm realized, we're all looking through American gun culture, and even like veterans and stuff, and kind of the big bad guy that so many people are facing are things like suicide and depression, and being stuck in my phone, and being stuck at this cycle of, I'm not even trying to be an Instagram star. I never leave it. It's well, okay, Instagram's not doing it, so then I add Twitter, and then and I have 17 channels that I watch on YouTube, and then by the end of it, my day is over, and I'm kind of like, and so the idea that you said of touching grass.
So I think one of the big things, and this is, I guess, controversial and multifaceted. So I come from a country where, we have pretty strict gun laws, right? We all know these things. It's shoved down our throats in the media every single day. Australians don't have guns. BS. Australians have guns. We're allowed to have guns. We're always allowed to have guns. Just certain things aren't allowed because of X, Y, and Z. People need to understand that. Second thing, too, is if you look at the founding of Australia versus the founding of America, Americans pushing out the British and creating the Constitution, Australia never had that. We're 100 years younger than America, not older, younger. So we never had that sort of civil war, that breakaway, throwing the tea in the harbor sort of rebellion. We were just given our, I guess you could say, like clemency, and we're told you're allowed to be a country, go do your thing. So we never really had that uprising against the government, so hence why we've always been on the crown. So we've never had that constitution built into or interwoven into the history of Australia. So when it did come to Port Arthur, which is Tasmania, where they had the massacre where that dude shot up a bunch of people with a auto M16, that's when the government said, right, if one person can't have it, none of you guys can have it, so they're going to take that away. And of course it went through pretty well, because we've never had that sort of pushback, and people didn't have the foresight to think of it like, hey, is this something we should be agreeing on? I'm not a bad person, so why is my things being taken away from me? They never really voiced that. It just became a sweeping uproar. Guns in, give you cash, peace out. So a lot of people did that. I'm sure a lot of guns never got, what would you say, sold back to the government. If you ever do get caught with those things, you're probably going to be facing a long time in jail. But those things are probably heirloom pieces that are now in safety deposit boxes in banks. But one of the big things that I've noticed, especially with this idea of touch grass and get outside, is when people say Australia got rid of guns and they no longer have, mass shootings and things like that. If we were to look at that as a number, sure, that is accurate. But when you look at the American mass shootings, they only really started to steamroll and get bigger and greater after a period of time. We've had fully automatic weapons since before 87, whenever the NFA Act was in place, or sorry, before that. We've had those. We never had mass shootings. We never had any of those things. We never had those discrepancies. Why? Was man better back then? Maybe. Did we do more back then? Sure. We were outside more. We worked more. We did more with our hands. We hung out with our friends. We drank water from the hose. We didn't come inside until it was dark or mum was calling us in for dinner. That has been around for years. So since the early 2000s, what changed? What has made us more violent? What has made us more aggressive? What has made us become this person? Because we're not talking about gangs. We're not talking about East Side Chicago, who those guys shoot up more people every year. We're not talking about taking away the guns from them.
Mm-mm.
We're only focusing on mass shootings in schools, because it's the same thing with. I look at it as like vegans. What animal don't you want to kill because it's not cute enough? You're okay with me plowing a field of moles and gophers and voles and everything like that to grow your tofu, but the minute I put a pig or a sheep or a cow there, they're cute, so I can't kill them. But as for all the other animals that I just plowed into the ground behind the combines, that's okay. It's because it's not cute enough.
Or it's out of sight, out of mind. It's just, it's,
Correct.
you have to look at like you have to look at the American virtue signaling problem of everything is just everything. I mean, it's in danger of becoming a monomania. And I guess I talk about that quite a bit, but you have to look at how much of our ideology and these belief systems that people have are just a distancing of oneself. I have an electric car because it's good for the environment, but it's charged by an electric grid, which now I'm dependent on the government for. That is powered by coal, but I don't see it, so
Do you
it's
know
not
how
my
hard it is to get
problem.
lithium? Do you know how hard it is to get lithium out of the ground?
I am not. I'm not intimately aware, but I know that it's not like you just
Much
dig.
easier and cleaner to get coal out of the ground than it is to get lithium.
Yes,
That's what batteries run on.
I don't know how to run a shovel in a third world country, but I have done it in the past, I guess.
Right. So, but like going back to that statement of like the virtual signaling, I get it. I get it. I don't ever want to see kids die. My local school just had a false school shooting.
Yep.
Thank God we have I live in a pretty nice district. We have the number one high school in the state. So our local police team are they got the shit dialed away. They were there within 2 minutes. They didn't ask questions. They didn't wait around. They weren't waiting for a commissioner to say anything. They just went straight through the door and did what they needed to do. Greatly impressed by that. Now, when I look at a lot of those things, why did a kid call in? Why did he say I'm going to shoot up a school? Why is he angry? What is he? He's wanting something. Now, is he wanting attention? Does he need a hug? I don't know. But kids of nowadays are wanting something and they don't know how to ask for it, and they get wrapped up into this dark, shitty ass world of social media. It truly is. It's destroying them. And I don't get me wrong, like I'm a father of 3 kids, lovely wife, and we spend a good amount of time with our face stuck in the phone. God, I did social media for companies for like 5 years. I know how bad it is.
It
And I
is.
think,
You mind if I interject here?
go.
I'm curious on your long form opinion on just like this idea of social media and how it has an impact in reference to gun culture, because working in it when you work in social media, or when I say work in social media, when you're engaging in the process of business in the United States, especially in gun culture, you're going to either be straight going for military contracts, or you're gonna have to have some interaction with the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way is there to interact with the general public than having a social media website? Because instead of having to tailor individual letters to people, or individual emails to people, or individual postcards to people, or individual whatever, I get to create something that I get to blast out. It's very utilitarian in that sense. But at the same time, I think so many of us have been around long enough, because we're not the youngest kids on the block, nor are we the oldest, but we've seen social media rise within gun culture, or we've seen just social media rise in culture as a whole, and it can become a little cheap to say things like social media is bad for you, but I run a business that's based on social media. And
Well, yeah.
so
I mean, I think it can be taken into social media can be bad if viewed the wrong way and you're chasing that endorphin or the likes. I think a lot of that falls to the key thing, though, is it's education, right? And this is how I see it. Why do certain brands do so well on IG? For example, I won't name names for just the sake of business, but I know a couple of really good guys out there who push education. They do great video work, and they really push the fundamentals of whatever it is that they're selling to the consumer. And to me, somebody takes something away from that. They learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to benefit them in some way, shape, or form. Now, we've got, a bunch of gun bunnies out there, big titties, putting on a set of GP18s, and we like that stuff, and that's what we're liking. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It's just a cool photo. But then newer kids, younger kids, as they start getting into those things, and as a brand owner and a person who works within another brand, when I deal with these people on the daily, oh, hey, I'm this person, I have X amount of followers, I do this, I want $5,000 for a post. I'm like, yeah, just liking a post is not worth money in my sense.
Mm-hmm.
Are you providing some form of education that is going to benefit my consumer? Then yes, let's have an honest, open conversation about how you can help my brand and I can help you. That halo effect. But a lot of people, and I'm seeing a lot of these high-end gun influencers, they've changed. Like, I'm from the back in the day when he used to drop just great content on plate carrier setups and guns and everything, and now he's wearing a white lab coat, pit vipers, and blowing up ballistic dummies for just view content. And I'm like, I don't get anything from that.
I've heard, the conversation on what Grand Thumb is producing, and this is where you get into the fringe of what could be considered drama. And the class. I mean, let's take an example, like the classic. If you want to do drama by brand, the classic brand drama of what we like, I think T-Rex Arms would be, or Lucas Bodkin is, he doesn't know how to shoot, or and this is one of those things where like that's when there's been drama that's surrounding that's been the subject that's been brought up. And then for Grand Thumb, it might be like, I don't really learn much, like I don't really need to know about what the trigger of this gun feels like because I'm never going to have one. But like but like that's where I'm a little like, I don't know how to say this, I'm a little divided in the sense of I may not learn something from Grand Thumb every time I watch a video, and I probably don't watch as many as I used to. But I'm not going to stand here and say that he hasn't had a major impact and effect in the industry, and he's had a really good impact in the sense of not necessarily bringing the ceiling down so that people can reach it, but more like, which, I guess there you go. I made my BLM fist. I'm communist. Don't at me. But the other side of it is I think this one of the best things that Grand Thumb has brought to the world is he has made otherwise untouchable things approachable.
Correct.
And he's kind of like, I would actually lump Grand Thumb into Ian of Forgotten Weapons. I would not put Grand Thumb in the category of I would not put him in the same category as I would put somebody like, I'm trying to think of another person that I occasionally, like Guns and Gadgets, who's on YouTube, or I wouldn't put him in the same category, even so much as like Warrior,
Warrior Poet Society, Colin Moore.
Yep, Warrior Poet Society is another one.
So one of the big things, and I think I might be looking at this very maybe not jaded, but we've seen in the last, for example, 6 Hour this morning lost their IG page.
Oh, damn! Good for them.
There you go.
They're a real boy now.
Yeah. So when now 6 Hour have always been very, very, very quiet on the like putting out all that hardcore sort of shoot 'em up style imagery, but they got axed. So I don't know if they're going to get back or whatnot, but it's a multi-billion-dollar company with government contracts. So one of the big things that I say is for a lot of the guys in our industry who are wanting to put out media and everything like that just for shock and awe, cool, do that. That's great. But then we got to look at it two ways. Is that helping or is that detracting from the long-term goal of what we are trying to do for our industry? Because our main platforms, Facebook and IG, are the same platform, right? They're owned by the same company. So they can do whatever they want, right? So
Yeah.
are we helping or are we detracting? Now, could we be smart and push proper education, not to the point of like I'm teaching somebody how to make a fully auto or how to build a M16 or how to build a whatever, okay? Because obviously doing those things on YouTube right now are bad. But how can we provide information that's one informative, that is beneficial, that is actually going to do our industry good in the long term when I'm not saying when shit hits the fan, because that's inevitable, because it's eventually going to hit the fan, but in a way that can easily be digested and be simple for the average father, the 2A connoisseur, the first time gun buyer, like, you
Do you
know.
think as as you've been, so gun culture is an interesting thing for me as from a point of observation, is that there are official and unofficial caste systems. It's very much so. The official ones are kind of fading. For example, there used to be the veteran on a pedestal problem, and that seems to have sort of, for the most part, gone. But at the same time, let's think of it this way. Um, we were talking about SHOT Show just in a brief like interim before we started recording, and a certain element of SHOT Show that has been the norm or the experience is everything's dick measuring, and
Mm-hmm.
dick measuring being it's every single interaction is prefaced by an emphasized experience of comparing who's who. Whereas
Yep.
this year was very different.
Correct.
I think this year people came with their cards ready, not their business cards, but like they came to the show going, I'm not here to figure out where I'm at in the pecking order. I'm here to spend time with the people that are important to me. This is just a personal opinion too. And so gun culture has been in many ways somewhat self-isolating because, oh, I'm an industry guy. I'm not an enthusiast. I'm an industry guy. I write for this magazine. I work for this company. I do this. I shoot this competition. I do this. And so that attitude of gun culture was in that unofficial caste system for a long time was, what kind of set the stage where you had people who didn't work for a company, didn't shoot every competition. They weren't world-class competitive shooters. They weren't military veterans, and they weren't social media influencers, but they had 10 years of investment into gun culture and had no place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you were like, you calling them an enthusiast would be a little bit underwhelming. Uh calling them an enthusiast would be underwhelming. It would not be sufficient. Um and saying, well, you're just a hobbyist, what cannot be understood in any way other than an insult, sort of. And so, but like the level of investment in gun culture, even on every like the level of investment that is, I wouldn't say unique to gun culture, but is particular to gun culture, which unfortunately linguistically might be implying the same thing, is that the level of investment people have is so far that the joke of don't make the Glock 36 or the Glock 19 your personality is something that we both mean seriously and not seriously. It's a joke and it's a serious warning at the same time. And the people that we know and the people in the culture and the people in the industry, um, as where we're at, I'm not saying this is like from my throne. I'm saying there's a certain amount of humility that has to come from it that says, yeah, but I sit at a desk and I work in gun culture all the time. That means I've got a 10-hour a day investment in this, because you got the hours you work plus the hours you think about it. Whereas many people don't. And so we've created this illusion of the first time gun buyer as somebody who we wouldn't recognize anyone in any other way, shape, or form, but now they have a gun and they're buying their first one. And I wonder if we as a culture as a whole, not just industry people, do that person a disservice by diminishing their person to a first time gun buyer. And you see where I went with that? Does that whole, like, I know it's not a short description, but did that whole thing come together?
Yeah, yes, because and it goes back to the original comment you said about dick measuring. Yes, this industry, and I say this to a lot of my friends, I say it to a lot of people in the industry too, it's fucking toxic. It's just toxic to the point of it being so obvious. You know the water tastes like shit. You know it's going to taste like shit the minute you walk in a shot show. It just is. However, there are a couple of little streams or pools of that water that is fresh right out of the ground, and those relationships are the best. And I agree with you. I went into SHOT Show this year with a new company, did a bunch of really cool things. And the minute day one rolled through, even within that first the company I'm with, it was just like, God damn, I thought this was, what's the right word of saying this? Thought the grass was greener. But it's just water with a different type of bullshit. But then I started to have conversations with other people from other brands that I haven't seen in years. And those conversations have evolved where we didn't talk products. We didn't talk business. We didn't talk kit. We didn't talk gear. We didn't talk about those things. Some of those first conversations was, how's the family? How's the wife? How's the kids? How's the weather? What are you drinking now? Scotch, whiskey, rye? What's your stogie of choice? What do you do? How's things? Tell me a joke. Like, we were having more raw, basic conversations with like a friend that you hadn't seen in 10 years. Yet the conversation flowed like water. It was fantastic. And I think there's a lot of people in the industry that are wanting that. Let's not beat around the bush. An M4 is an M4. Okay? Gas impingement, or if you want to go for... there's not a lot of innovation into that. Stoner made a great rifle, and it's been a great rifle for years. No matter how you Gucci this thing up, whether it's you make the outside look pretty, the internals are literally the same. They haven't changed. So you can't really do too much on that, right? Tactical nylon. Okay, so now we're laser cutting everything when using B-52 Squadron. Cool, looks good. There's a lot of creating solutions for problems that don't exist. So I still see that pretty prevalent in this community. But what I'm starting to see, there was a pickup in it during COVID, but then it's died down again. During that COVID where we weren't going outside, we weren't doing things, a lot of guys were pushing really cool information, like really cool things to learn. And then all of a sudden, right, Rona's gone, so let's get back outside. What happened to the information? Where did all that cool learning stuff go away? Go back to that. And I think seeing those guys in the industry, it has actually put a lot of these influencers on blast, because you couldn't pay for the influencers during COVID because you weren't doing much. You weren't doing those sort of things. So a lot of these guys had to go back to true brand education. And then when you see a lot of these influencers that were rolling around now, I didn't see a lot of the big names kicking on the floor. They're also a little bit more quieter. They weren't asking for all the big things that they used to ask for, because they realize that, just because you have followers, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't transition to profit to a company. Just because you have a couple of big guys on your payroll that do things, yeah, cool. It keeps your information, it keeps your engagement up. But the minute Zuck decides to turn it off, it's irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant.
Yeah, there's an element of gun culture that is refusing to, I can only describe it as refusing to acknowledge the situation that they're in, and that they are at the behest of people who their presence and success is at the behest of people who they tend to not like. Being like getting the zuck is a good example. So on the one hand, there's this recognition of like kind of know your place, in the sense of, yeah, if I'm running a business on social media, I have to admit to myself that my business is 100% dependent on whether or not social media axes me today. Right? Like whether or not social media, some random nameless, faceless moderator over at insert company here decides that whatever I said is whatever phobic today, and therefore, or I'm going to do the greater good for society, and I'm going to shut off your pipe stream of information because I'm saving little kids in Arkansas. It's like, no, you're not. First of all, no, you're not. You're actually doing the opposite. You're like I think you could. This is going to be a very long tail phrase, or not long tail phrase, but this is going to be a very long tail theory. But I think you can link social media censorship and management to violent outbursts of people. I'm not saying that the social media websites are responsible for it, because individual agency is a thing. And when an individual decides to do something egregious, it's that person. But social media is aware to some extent. I know that I've seen the articles and I've seen the white papers start to pop up where social media is aware that it is willingly opening the valve of human depravity, and then while closing their eyes to the consequences of it. And so, but the problem that I run into with that one is, once again, as an individual, if I'm allowing my Instagram or my social media to control me in a way that is unethical,
She go outside and touch the grass.
it is, well, that's the one side of it. It is on one half, really, it is my fault. I can't go and say, oh man, Grantham said something I didn't like, therefore I'm justified in downing a half a bottle of bourbon today. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's or I'm not justified in doing bad things. But so when and at the same time, it is a little bit of, hey man, if you're like horribly depressed, go outside and this too will pass. And
I think so.
Because I've had to do that myself. It's like, when I've gone through bouts of depression, it's sometimes it is simple as getting outside and saying this too will pass.
Yeah, and I think some of the big things too that a lot of people don't look at is going down this, because I mean, as an owner of a company who has social media, like, I do rely on it, but I'm also getting to that point where I start to look at it like that can't be my only metric that I try to grow my business on. And unfortunately, in our industry, it is a huge metric player, but it is also a very fragile piece that can be taken away in a heartbeat. And we're watching it happen left, right, and center. Oh, that's against my First Amendment rights. Bullshit. It's not against your First Amendment rights. They're a private company. They can do whatever they want. End of story. You're using their platform. Got to deal with it. People just don't want to accept that. It's like there's a rule. Don't do stupid things. We'll turn it off. Are they going past those community guidelines of what they perceive as community guidelines? Yes, that I 100% agree.
Yep.
They are pushing the boundary of what community guidelines are.
Yes.
But it's very simple. It's like I'd say, hey, if you're going to use my toilet, make sure you clean the bowl. Don't just leave a fucking stripe in there and peace out. Okay, if you just left a stripe and peaced out, well then yes, get out of my house. But
I'm never visiting you. I can't do this anymore.
You know what I mean? But like if you stay within their perceived boundaries, but they're pushing their boundaries left and right on the regular, we have to, as a community, understand this. We're using their platform. Either petition to have another platform, like ask Mr. Elon or whoever is in our favor to build something for us, transition all of our shit over there, or do what a lot of the right people do. Own your server, create your own website, put all your information, all your photo work on that one location that you control, you own, and no one can take it away from you, because that is all yours.
Yeah.
People will come to that. Go back to the basics, go back to text messaging, go back to email, and go do all of those things. We are so afraid of having to do that little extra work. We are so afraid to do that extra work. I said to a business recently, and they're like, well, you know, we've got this amount of followers, we need to get more information out. And I'm like, well, you just got flagged twice. Okay. So you had your 2 warnings. You do another, I know you're doing it for the right reason. You're doing the Lord's work. You're saying the things that you personally believe in for the industry. I am 100% behind it. I'm not 100% behind it for you to do it on the platform, because that's, you're not playing marbles. They've got more marbles than you, and their marbles are bigger. You're not going to win. So when you do say those things and you lose your followers, and that is your base, can you personally call each and every one of those followers and ask them to buy some of your product?
No.
Think of that. Brands don't think like that.
So then how do you balance the, because we use the word, I'm not pessimistic, I'm realistic a lot. And that's a little, it's probably a relic of our generation, to be honest, because it's sort of, it's such a 1990s, 2000s thing to say, oh, I'm not pessimistic, I'm realistic. And the answer is no, you're actually just pessimistic. You're taking every observation and picking the worst possible outcome and defining that that's going to be the outcome. Fine. But so the point in that really bad, not even a segue, is we have to come to kind of terms with what social media is and what social media isn't. We have to come to terms with what the community is and what the community isn't. Because I want to, like, and we are coming, and this is the optimism bias that I have, is that I think that gun culture as a whole is so much more aware of who they are and who they aren't. And in some ways, it's like, it's the same thing that it's extremely frustrating to me when I watch people have their so-called social identity defined by people who are their antithesis when it comes to values. And an example of that would be what we would call the American left is very, very good at this, and they ascribe labels to people, and then people respond to those labels publicly and privately. So you have this example of, I'm not a, like, you look at like the white fragility thing, the Robin DiAngelo left argument that is said that, like, it's describing what white people are, which is, I mean, it's like Robin DiAngelo is a racist. She is the kind of person that when you meet in public and you read her book, and if who she is if her book is a reflection of who she is, she's somebody who you meet in public and go, you are horrible.
Yeah.
I think you are a bad human being. And because you're a racist, you're a terrible human being. Yet she's paid thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to lecture people on racism. Even though she's probably, I mean, she's closer to the KKK than she is to Gandhi. It's probably what I would say. And somehow that's a marketing ploy. And yet when she calls somebody a thing, people like internalize it and say, I'm not a thing, even though no one said you were. The only person who said you were was the actual, racist or whatever. And so this is kind of a cultural challenge. And where I'm going with this, with gun culture, is I think gun culture is becoming is aware and becoming more aware that the situation that they live in is a framework, but it's not. There's a difference between the rules of the game, so to speak, and what is good, what is moral. And the kind of final wrapping of this, I have to move it on, I'm sorry, is we look at social media. One, we know that elements of the government who are not interested in your well-being but in your control are going to social media companies and telling them what to do. They are going, elements of the government are going to you, going to social media companies and saying, turn off the Hunter laptop story, turn off this person's opinion on the vax or the mandate or whatever, turn off this story, but amplify this story. We know that the government is doing that. We know that social media companies are run by ideologues very often, whose personal politics cannot help but bleed into their company. We also know that companies are run by people. People have opinions. Those opinions bleed into what they do in their work. There is no such thing as it is impossible to separate a person's values from their work. So we know all these things are true, and we know that social media and public big tech companies are not necessarily in our favor. We know all these things.
So let me quickly interject on that, because you make a very valid point. So we know all of these things. Are we really this stupid? Here's a simple thing to this, and this is how I look at it. You can see across all of our big hype brands and all of those big guys that we currently have in the industry, right? What are they chasing? They chase the likes. They chase the comments. They're not truly trying to do anything that is going to benefit the industry. Now, these guys all have that capability. They all have that capability to be better, to push better information, and to like covertly fly under that radar. They do. Like, we have such great companies in this industry. If someone in their social media departments were just like, you know what? Instead of always just going after the clout photos and the likes and all of these things, if we did it this way and a little bit like this, we would all be pushing the right information, the right stuff, all to our market base, all to our shares, and you would prolong this so much more, rather than, hey, this guy got flagged, go quickly spam his secondary account, his third account, his fourth account, and his 5 other backup accounts. No one's going to do that. Like big companies like, Sig Sauer, they'll get their pages back because they spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on ads and things like that. But for the guys like you and me, we can't afford that sort of shit. But if you push the right information all the time versus chasing that hype beast likes and that quick endorphin hits, because, these guys pop up cool photos, GP18s on helmets shooting MP7s in the desert. You can do that, but do it in a different way where it doesn't have to show off those sort of things. And you will still get the likes because people like the brand. You'll still get the likes, but push the right information.
Are you making the statement that people will play the edge game on social media because of its attention? I mean, I think there's something to be said there too, is the closer you are to getting banned, the more interesting your page is.
Well, yes and no, until your page is banned and then you realize you didn't have a backup to fix that. So then all of a sudden when you try to drop everything, how do you get that out to your market? I mean, what was the Parler? What happened to that thing? That's fucking dead in the water. So when you look at all these other things, so like, are these guys, and I mean, a lot of it comes to time and effort, and a lot of these IG pages or our industry friend brands, like hype brands, they're hobbies. So, but how are they really trying to, if they're trying to grow their brand or their media or their merch or anything like that, what are they doing? How are they looking at those sort of things? Because, a new IG platform is going to be very, very hard to implement and get up and running without monumental collateral.
Yes.
Or someone heavily on the, not the 2A side, but the conservative side, because this is multifaceted, because religion and guns, they fall into the same category. If you speak about one type of religion, we know which religion that is, you'll get in trouble, but you can speak about all the other religions, right?
Yep.
So when you look at religion and guns, they're the same thing. And I had a great conversation with a guy this morning regarding a product which has also got a religious tie to it due to his brand name. He's like, I want to push that story. I'm like, push it, but don't push it heavily on the social media market, because it is going to fall under that no category.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at both of those things, another good brand friend of mine, Wardall, where's his stuff? Not there anymore. And he was a massive, Christian who would speak about his things and say the right things. And, he hit a lot of nails on the head, no pun intended. And eventually it just got turned around and driven back into him. And he no longer has his platform. But he spoke the word of the Lord, did great things, great media, great content. But it just falls underneath someone else, like, oh, well, you're not sharing this. You're not sharing this. We don't like this type. We want this. I mean, we are smarter than this in our industry. We like to spout how big our phalluses are, but we're not really willing to. That's not the problem in our industry. Like, I don't know why we stop measuring dicks. You all have big dicks. No one cares. Can't see it. No one cares.
I sometimes the dick measuring is like a self-generating it's a self-licking ice cream cone of like, of what I mean. I guess I definitely pulled my
Valid comment, dude. Valid comment.
It's in other words, sometimes drama is more interesting than important subjects.
But we are creating so much of that internalized industry drama that truly detracts from. There is a greater goal here that
we're not. When I say we're not creating, I don't mean that we're not participating in it. What I mean by we're not creating in it is in like we're not. It's not somebody over here manufacturing an artificial drama story to get clicks and likes. That may happen. The issue is that we sit down with each other. We get a bourbon, or we get a whatever. We sit down with each other. We have a coffee, and we're having a conversation. And like you were saying at SHOT Show, instead of talking about the things that are important to us, we're talking about who's in a tiff with who. And then and somewhere in that conversation we'll huff and snuff and say, TMZ is a bunch of drama channel. And then we'll go right back to it. Like that's what we do as individuals. And so like but that's where I'm optimistic. And I'm saying yes. But I don't think that I am not okay with the idea of externalizing the problem to somebody else's fault.
No.
When it comes to the drama issue, like we're talking about social media influencers, we're talking about gun culture, we're talking about people who have clout and weight, and we're talking about subjects where people are trying to figure out how to make evaluations of people, so they spend their hard-earned money, or they spend their not hard-earned money, their excessive Biden dollars or whatever the hell it is, on something that's meaningful or not meaningful. We're trying to justify whether or not I should buy a multicam black plate carrier or a multicam arid plate carrier.
How it works.
No. And then we're making evaluations of people because this guy's on social media and he's got the wrong camo for his environment, so now he's dumb. And this guy's using a Mark 18, and this is like, no, we do that to ourselves. And I'm not saying it's fine. I'm saying like, so what?
Yeah,
in the sense of
as an industry in a whole, we're all assholes. And I think the same thing along the poor, don't be poor comment, buy once, cry once sort of thing. Some people just can't buy once, cry once. Sure, you can save up for those things, but a $300 set of 50/50 Nyko pants, it's a lot of fucking money. A lot of people can't afford that. Buy what works. You know what I love shooting on the range? Chinos. 4-way stretch chinos. I can run faster than you. I can probably do a lot more than you. They're just as durable in my sense and what I do, and they're comfortable. Now, me putting on a set of Cry G3s, maybe with the knee pads, maybe without the knee pads, ball soup, heavy ass fabric. No, I wear what's comfortable and what works. And I think we need to just push that, build what you need it to work. And if it doesn't work, you know how to make it better. If you don't know how to make it better, you ask. And if you can ask, there is a wealth of knowledge in the room that people are willing to share with you. I'm sure we all started with Condor, and if you didn't start with Condor, you're a liar. We all started with Condor.
I mean, I don't think I started with Condor. I started with Army issue OCPs.
Oh, dude, that's worse than
ACUs. Yeah, it's worse than Condor.
That's worse than Condor.
I started with ACUs. So we had the cotton ones, and then we had the flame retardant ones. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to get dinged on social media because I use the word retardant referring to a flame retardant object. Thank you, algorithm. You're an asshole.
Yeah,
but my point being said is that, like, yeah, that's sandpaper for your undercarriage, and it sucks. So sure,
but why do we hold why is everybody in that comment? Why are we so elitist? Do we not know where we started from?
I mean, here's the other side of it: is why are we so concerned with that? Let's take, for example, like the skinny jeans phenomena, right? So as I've gotten older, if I look at the jeans that I've worn over the last 14 years, they have gotten closer to my skin, right?
Are they more comfortable?
Well, and this was kind of the absurd phenomena that happened, is that, like, I watched a guy doing CQB in I'm not even going to say skinny jeans, but like jeans that were not baggy jeans. and I did not hear his pants going whoosh 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 whoosh, and that was enough to go, holy shit, this dude is quiet as hell. And it was like, okay, that makes sense. I understand why he's what, like, it was that was the thing that did it, right? Where it was like, yeah, I know there is this criticism of like the skinny jeans wearing Antifa dude who's in the street saying, you know, capitalism is for the devil or whatever, or
There's the
while
Antifa
he's
guy
talking, while
running around
he's
with a 13 Pro phone.
yeah, while he's walking, while he's saying down with the, you know, whatever, death to capitalism with his phone, who is probably made by like slaves in a third world country or whatever, you know. And it's like, yeah, I get the cruel irony of it. And then like in gun culture, you know, there's the things like, oh, he's got a Zoomer gat or whatever. Like, okay, fine, but like it was the part that I'm saying is that like that's not other people doing it to us, that's us doing it to ourselves.
Correct.
Like
We created that culture. Like, so I think modern day gun culture skipped a generation, right? So
okay,
I currently am building a hunting apparel line for a company.
sure.
So the traditional hunters, they're getting 16, 70 years old. They're about to retire. They can't hunt anymore. They're not going to go out and do the big deer, big things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now the baby boomers in between that, right? That's the right group to say, the baby boomers. They weren't hunters. They didn't do a lot of hunting. That was a massive tank in our society. That dropped by a few million. Now you've come down to the modern day, which is millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, our category and whatnot. Some of us are hunters because it was passed down through generations, but you know, you probably don't go out and hunt. I don't go out and hunt. You know, have I hunted before? Yes, but I'm not a yearly hunter. I don't always go out and buy tags. So that part has changed. So the modern day 2A person is a hype 2A person. So if we look at 99% of the guys in our community, you have the percentage who are dads who are 2A or tied into the industry, law enforcement and whatnot. But then you have a really, really high proportion of people who are 20 to 30-year-olds who are driven by what's cool, what's hot, what's not, what the best guns, best suppressors, best mounts, optics, clothing, and everything like that. We will rock up to the gun range wearing Vans. We wear skinny jeans. We wear a shitty Chinese-made hoodie with a brand logo on the front of it that we picked up off a Facebook group for $300 because of hype. You know, the problem with a lot of that culture, I'm glad that we're out there shooting and doing all those things, but it's detracting away, or I think it's almost adding fuel to the fire of giving the other side, you know, that ability to be like, you know, this is a nasty thing. These guys will spend any money that they want. They'll do all of these things. Might as well just take it away from them.
So I'm going to ask a hard question, and
Sure.
what I mean why it's a hard question is because it's I'm going to ask you live, you know, in recording, essentially make a moral evaluation of a statement I'm going to say. And there are plenty of daggers to throw at. There's plenty of daggers to point at what you'd refer to as like hype brands.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of daggers to throw at hype brands, but one of the things that I have seen from what is criticized as hype is the hype brand world or the hype, whatever you want to call hype brand, has been better at getting people to spend time with each other and interact and build community accidentally or intentionally. I think I just whatever, you know what I mean? Like it has been better to build that culture, I guess is probably the best way of saying it. Than all of the activism for community building.
Right.
So when I think of a hype brand, I don't think of a brand that is I don't necessarily. Am I wrong in saying that the product that hype brands produce is community?
Incorrect.
I am incorrect.
What they're producing with a lot of hype brands is creating a product that people want to have because they have it for clout. They don't necessarily create a community, right?
It's a social status. It's a status
social
symbol.
status.
Yeah, but a status symbol
like
is dependent on
no one knows that I've got the whole entire fog hat collection. and I've spent $1,000 on it, and that's cool, but it doesn't do anything for truly the community. So what happens is, if you don't get on the drop, you then got to buy this product on a Facebook group or one of those groups, and you usually pay an arm and a leg through it. For example, here you go, here's something for you. I've seen these fog pins, right? Little pin here go for $150.
Yep.
Right. It's $5 from China.
I mean, I could take that. I could throw it in. I could throw it in on a device. I could draw it out, and I could have one made. And I could probably figure out. So, you know what I mean? Like my friend could buy one, and I could probably figure out. Or I could.
Every single thing from these hype brands is usually hats, clothing. It's merch. It's merch for their brands. It doesn't create community. It creates profit for the brand. But what are they truly pushing? Hey, come get our new. You know, we went and got like a bunch of pens made with our brand on it because it's a hype brand and people want to buy it. Let's get an umbrella made. Let's get stupid shit made. Stupid shit. That does nothing for the community. How about let's do great training, great information. You know, hey, we're going to bring out to the market like something that's actually worthwhile, like a mount or like a laser or a lighter or something like that. Partner with these guys and give the shooters a reason why to buy this, not the reason why to buy a cheap Chinese-made cotton blank with a fucking logo on the front that's going to wear off in 2 washes. Now, where you said that it gets people out shooting, sure, but it doesn't get new people shooting. What it does,
it's not that it gets up. It's not that it gets people out shooting. It gets people talking to each other. I don't mean to. I mean, I'm not that. This is where I'm a little. And this is why I'm saying it's a hard question. Is that
it gets people about talking about what? Did you get the cool new drop? Did you get on this drop? Other than that, are they writing into their senators? Are they speaking with the local congressman? Are they going to the local gun range and saying, hey, I'd love to spend a day, you know, policing brass for you guys? You know, what have you done to reach out to your local scouting community or your scout groups and try to do like a 22 rifle course, teach these guys gun safety? What have they done truly for the 2A community?
It's a valid question, and
I
am going to answer it though, and I'm saying that let's just use a series of examples, and in some ways I'm not saying I have to use people who I don't know personally,
right?
Okay, so I'm trying to separate. I'm going to try to make this argument with as much integrity as I can, and it's a difficult thing. I guess I'm sounding really Jordan Peterson-esque right now, but I'm going to use a couple of examples of people that I don't know personally. We'll use like White Phosphor. He runs an Instagram page. He's got a very distinct aesthetic.
I know White Phosphor.
I don't know him personally. The guy who runs SupDef or Superior Defense.
Corey Amond.
I know it's Corey. I just don't know him. I know who Corey, but I don't know him. You know, or we'll use an example. Let's see, what's one other one? People who I've not like had conversation with, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to basically air gap myself from defending my friends. But the thing that I'm going to run into is I'm also going to run into a little bit of bias.
Fog?
I mean, my affiliation to Forward Observations Group is gray. So, but I do have I have his coffee table books. Their coffee table books now, because there's multiple of them. Whatever. Yeah. So say what again?
Mine is sitting over there.
Yeah. But my point is, the best way I can describe it is I can tell it in a story. I got out of the military. I did private contracting. I went to college. I was shooting competition. I got out of gun culture because I was too busy with education to participate in gun culture effectively anymore. And which is a weird excuse because there are people like Condition Set who's doing it. Mm-hmm. But I got out of gun culture for a while, and I was focusing on academics and whatever. And then what got me back into gun culture was looking at all of these people who ran these small brands, like in current example, HRF Concepts, Forward Observations Group, Villain Weapon Systems, who's been on the show. And I saw all of these people that were building these brands that were the primary product that they were producing was not the shirt. It's what the shirt entails and what the idea is about and who they were marketing in ideas. And so on the one hand, it could quickly be dismissed. We're going to use white phosphor as an example. White phosphor sells an aesthetic. He's a fashion guy.
Correct.
That's not, right. Like he's a fashion brand. And I can look at Gucci. I can look at Rolex. I can look at Balenciaga, and I can say that I don't know why that brand is so expensive, or that it's an artificial expense. True. I agree with you. But I agree with you in the sense of like there's a certain amount of criticism to be leveled at one product made in China that's $200, whereas the same product is made in China, but the lettering is different, or whatever, right? Like but the thing that culture brands, hype brands produce, for better and for worse, is they produce community. They have people who follow them. They
produce a community.
Community, right?
Correct.
So
it will not be tied to this community and what this community needs, but it is tied to a community within that. Let's call it a sub community.
Yeah. But
if you were to go to SHOT Show and you were to ask every single person that you walk past, you might get a few that would say, "Yeah, I know White Boss. Do you know Subdef? Yeah, I know Subdef. Do you guys know Bald Bros? I know Bald Bros. You know Fog." You might get a few of those people, but there's a good portion of the people who travel through SHOT Show have no idea who those are. But then if you go and hit up all of the bigger brands like Spiritus, Pharaoh, and all those guys and ask all of them who it is, you will find that these hype brands, right? White, Foss, all of them, illicit provisions and all of those, we're one big community, right? We're all tied in together. Warm and Fuzzy, Tack Hunt, Fish, all of these guys, we all play in a very, very small pool. Do these guys hang out with SIG? No. The only guys that hang out with SIG are like GBRS group, but that's because of their ties within the SEAL community and whatnot. But then if you look at all of those, they're all very different. And then you have your factions of these subgroups, right? So you have Vegas subgroup, you have East Coast subgroup, which is like Kilo and a bunch of the guys are Red Earth Society. You have all of those guys up there, Red Earth, something, maybe not Society, but you have that
Black
group.
Powder Red Earth.
Black Powder Red Earth, yeah. Then you've got the other one that's further down. So there are 3 different factions. Sometimes they fuck with each other, as in like they make cool shit, or other times they're just like, no, I don't like you guys. It's like Kilo partners with everybody, but not with everybody. You know what I mean? Like they're all very different. And then you've got like Warm and Fuzzy does stuff with Kilo, also does stuff with LBT. So it's very into sharing, and it's not creating like cool gun things. Like I haven't seen any of these guys create anything cool gun related, but it's creating a style of what is perceived as gun culture is, because this is the new gun culture, right? We wear drip, you know, we wear all this sort of stuff. You know, we do tell people, fuck off if you don't have cries, you're not cool. If you don't run a fucking B&T, you're also not cool. If you don't fuck with Noveski, like
do we do that though? No. Do we do that as gun culture, or is it just people within? Is this Beverly Hills drama where it's
this is within, and it's within certain groups. And I'm on every one of those Facebook trade groups, and it's fun to watch. What was my first ever pistol? Smith & Wesson SDV-9, shittiest of shit. It was great. Shoot great with it. It's a great little pistol. Do I run that now? No. I have H&Ks. I run SIGs. I run FNs. You know, they're all great guns. Of course, Glocks. You know, Glocks are Glocks. You know, I have nice stuff. But that's because it's evolved throughout the years to what works. I don't have a plethora of, you know, ARs. I have 2 SBRs, lowers, and then I adjust everything else from the above. So I can have my 14.5s, my 10.5s, my 300 blackouts, and I run 1 SBR. So I can travel anywhere with it. But I do see, and it also comes across as very comical within our guys. Oh, you don't run, you don't have cries? Dude, doesn't matter. You look at every one of these hype brand photos. How many of these guys are really wearing cries? Maybe 1 or 2 dudes in the photos. because it's good gear. Does crime make great stuff? Yes, it does. Not everyone can afford it. We gotta understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Run what you have. And here's the thing. And I mean, I'm not playing to this. I'm only just looking at the media. Let's say Lucas Botkins can shoot. Let's say he can. Can any of these other guys shoot as good as Lucas Botkins? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't see a lot coming from these other brands. I see a lot of still photography coming from a lot of these other brands, and it looks dope.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would love to be out in the desert at sunset with GP18s on, you know, with an MP7. Fuck yeah. But can these guys shoot better than Lucas? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't know. I'm throwing that out there for speculation. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
The kid's always shooting. Yes, he has his voice. Yes, he has his market. He has his things. You know, I think if we were to look in general, who does more for the actual what is the 2A community as a whole, I think it more falls on him and Grand Thumb who've done more than some of these hype brands. Now, I do like that these hype brands are making people want to post cool photos of the industry. I get that. That I like. But when it comes to, you know, fundamentals and information, Warrior Poet Society, you know, gamut resolutions,
I mean, I can,
line,
yeah.
Darcy, those guys are really doing what's core to the industry.
Yeah, just like Orion Training, I've had to plug them a couple times, but just like
Orion is one of them. Yep.
You know, as just like Orion Training Group is bringing the class. I mean, I think of and these are all people that I've had, you know, I'm just going to quote people that have been on the show. So this is going to be a plug for what we've done, but we've had Ian of Rune Nation on.
Cool
Ian, in Ian, and Ian talks about ideas as well as performance, right? And we haven't had Chris from Veil Solutions on. Chris is another example.
Rumor's fantastic. Rumor's a great dude.
You know, and I've had conversations with him, but he just hasn't been on the show. Hopefully, though, I get to add the word "yet" to that. But and so these are things that are like, and there are people out there who, and this is where, in some ways, the motive of this the production came from is, you know, when you think about the important conversations that you have with people, especially in gun culture. Let's just talk about in gun culture, which for me ranges from my father, who could in many ways fit the FUD category, although he's my father, so I'm a little pro dad, to it could range from that to, you know, interacting with people who I don't actually know on social media. And oh, it just, the train left the station, damn it. But
while you're waiting for the train, let me say with this, I have mad respect for all of these hype brands. They've done a great job in bringing like a patch to the market and turning it into a following and partnering with all of the other cool hype brands in the industry. I think that being able to create that, like not being like seen as an outcast, like, hey, I'm a cool guy, I'm a new guy, this is my design and my brand, and everyone takes that under the umbrella and brings that into this new age. I think that is really cool. I think that having all of these guys know whether that, you know, they're all in the same and whatnot, whether it's just merch and nothing gun related, apart from like, you know, some cool designs. I think that in general is cool. I buy from all the brands. I really do. But when I truly look at it, like my own personal opinion, like, you know, I'm buying a t-shirt I'm going to wear like 10 times, wash it 4 times, and it's sort of cracked and faded. So I throw it in the bin. I know I'm not buying quality product. I know I'm not buying quality product because it's hype fast merch to look cool. So I appreciate these guys for creating some really cool brands. First and foremost, it's the imagery that you buy into. I buy into their look, their style, their ideas, or whatever it is that they're creating as a brand.
It's the idea. It's the idea. You buy a brand because of the idea, right?
Yeah, I want to be in the desert with an MP7 and GP18s. That's what I'm buying into, even though I'm never going to get that.
Okay, or I see this brand as an act of rebellion against X system. Okay, fine.
Sure.
You're still again. There's a little bit of the you can be there can be tongue in cheek. There can be and you know, like in the sense of full disclosure, the way that this company continues to run is that people do buy our merch. Not a
Right.
lot, but it's enough to keep the lights on right now.
I will
For
definitely,
now,
after this, dude. I like that shirt, dude. I'm gonna be getting me one of them for sure.
well, they're not on the shop right now, so just I'll see.
Just
Oh, I have to decide when I come out with when we're gonna release a
do I
batch.
leave like a negative Reddit or something, or do I
I
just
don't
go
do Reddit. I don't.
Yelp or something like that?
Yeah, you can do a Yelp review. But my point being said is this: like, when I think of what we refer to as hype brands, is they're the ones that are good are selling ideas. The ones that are bad are mimicking them. But if I am allowing myself to be controlled by the hype, that's my fault.
100%.
Now, that does not mean that if a person is, let's just say, because what's the ultimate? What's sort of like what is one of the ultimate sins of gun culture? It's stolen valor, right? And so, like, if you lie about who you used to
Mm-hmm.
be or whatever, like that's exactly what you lie about who you are. You build this entire following, and then somebody who goes, "Oh, wait a minute, he's not who he says he is,"
Are we
and then
talking about
boom.
that? Are we talking about that dude?
I mean, there is no that dude. There are plenty of that dudes who have done
Right.
it, right? And the sad thing is, it does come out. There are some exceptions, but it eventually comes out. Like, your britches got too big, dude. Fine.
Yeah.
Like,
If you
people
can't
make.
back it up, if you can't back it up with the most simplest paperwork, then you shit out of luck, dude.
But I mean, so my point in this one is brands. There's a combination of a brand of because you made a statement about, but they're not making anything that's better for gun culture. They're not making any product that's better. They're not making a better riser, barrel, rail, gun,
Or even
pants,
education.
whatever. Education, sure, 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 sure. So my counterpoint where that train left the station issue was you're making a statement that's based on a foundation of evaluations of
Uh-huh.
values, and that is where I see gun culture right now is it's re-examining what that block of values is.
I can agree with that.
And I mean it's happening on the individual scale, it's happening on a larger scale, right? And so like to the extent that Sig Sauer is an interesting brand where who did we have? We had I think I was talking to Nathan from the CBRN Art or the Art and War podcast, and he was laughing about a meme where you can base a person's entire identity on the gun they carry. What does the henchman carry? The henchman carries a G36. And you're like, okay, well, he's a henchman. Why? Because he's carrying a G36, and you don't want to base your identity on a gun. Okay, so Sig Sauer is a brand which I use a Sig handgun. I like the P320. I've been happy with it so far. Somebody who's listening to this is going to make a moral evaluation of who I am because I've used a Sig P320. I'm going to have to think about that at some point in time. And
What's wrong with the P320?
I'm finishing, but and the whole point of this whole thing is um how much of gun culture and this thing that we call hype and this thing that we call drama is really just us as me as an individual externalizing my frustration of allowing something to control me and then blaming somebody else. It's like the pornography problem. It's like uh if it wasn't so attractive I wouldn't look at it, but it's wrong. And it's like the temptation is the temptation. You can't it's not the sin is the doing of the thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the thing existing. And so sure, there are people within gun culture who are unauthentic and they're false and they're liars and they're cheats and they're whatever. It happens. There are influencers who are shills, who are liars, who are whatever. But although there's an optimism bias involved, how much of our time are we wasting, and how much of our time are we wasting being angry about the shills and the liars and the no innovations? Because bringing a product to market is not easy for many people, and so
Correct. It's. I
and
mean,
bringing it. and even harder, bringing a successful product to market is not easy. And so when a brand is selling t-shirts, and this is me defending my own company, it is, I recognize that I don't sell anything. I have a couple of products that are utility focused, but a lot of it is that this brand is an idea, and that idea is decentralized. It's it's Americana. It's, we are people, we have values. And so I am closer to committing the sins of, say, Black Lives Matter, selling a lie and making millions of dollars, great grift. I'm closer to the sin of the grift than I am the sin of the weapons trafficking guy.
Fair enough.
So but I recognize that, the thing that I have of value to bring, I think the value that I'm trying to bring to the community is, again, this is me defending myself, so there's a certain amount of layer to it, but I think that when I look out in gun culture, I don't see people who are wanting for stuff. I see myself going, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't want to just sit here and have, I don't want a safe queen, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I'm trying to figure these things out, right?
Yeah.
And
I think,
so
I think some of the big things is, I can definitely see this over the next 12 to 24 months to 36 months. Do I see IG still being where it is? No, I see there being a monumental shift within that platform, especially for our industry within, let's say, 36 months, right? Now, whether that is, we have a government change and we have an oversight committee that looks into, these big corporations and what they can say and do and that. But then again, then that's in a sense oversight in itself on a private business, which you and I are both in agree. I don't want oversight on my private business. Correct?
yes.
So if you ran IG, you should be allowed to do whatever you want, per se.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, the issue that we're having with Instagram is not only the fact that the company has making moral decisions, but also that there are direct lines from the government to tell social media companies what to do.
So then the double-edged sword is, let's say we change the government, and then the new government comes in who's in our favor, then says to IG, hey, don't do this. Then that's doing exactly what the previous government just did.
Yeah, but show me an example of that actually happening.
It's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen.
No,
but
because
we do know that one government right now is chatting to these big conglomerates to say, hey, don't do X, Y, and Z. Let's say we did reverse the sword and flip it the other way. Let's say if that did happen, good luck if that ever going to happen now into the future due to whatever. It still falls under those things where we're not taking a lot of this into our own hands. We're still relying heavily on this one platform.
yes, we are
We're still
acknowledging or not acknowledging the fact that I'm dependent on YouTube, Instagram,
correct,
locals, and I think I'm using Squarespace right now, whatever, but I'm dependent on these companies, and if they don't like my business, they shut my business down.
Right. So, but then the true way to create that community is tell people about that community, right? So, hey guys, you're gonna see our shit on IG, but if you really want the know-how and you really want the what spot, go to our website, hit our subscribe button, reach out to us that way. Here's my personal text message me, whatever. If you create the tree of knowledge, take for example like the Liberty Tree, you create that meeting ground, and that's your own website, and you want people to learn about those things. You want to know about first-hand drops, you're not going to see them on IG anymore. You're going to see them on our website. You want that cool shit, come here. You want to see a rotating gallery, it is always going to be there. You want to see all of our cool drops, here. You want really cool mobile, like screensavers, dude, we've got you covered. Free downloads always on our website at the end of every month. We'll do a photo shoot every month. Here's all this thing. That's creating the community. You want to learn about cool-up training classes that we partake in, or even with our homies in the industry, go check out Greenline. Go check out this. Go check out these guys. Go check out all of that shit. Boom. You want to know the kit and gear that we wear in our shoots? You want to know who's our plate carrier, who's our battle belt? This is him. This is him. This is him. You want custom cool shit? Go hit up this guy. Who makes the best, stuff? Go speak to the guys over at Shore Concepts. If you want custom kit, go speak out to these guys. If you're new in the industry and you want to hit up a cool photographer, here's our 5 favorite guys we love to use. Look after the homies.
Yes.
If you buy a shirt from me, buy a shirt from me. Much appreciated. But if you want to really help me, help my homies, help me. It's called a halo effect, and a lot of brands don't do that. They keep everything close to the chest.
That's a very, it is for lack of better words, a very FUD attitude of like this. It's the because okay, let me use this example. The idea of like stolen property, stolen intellectual property, right? It's this is my opinion on stolen IP is that you may win the world, but you will lose your soul. Even if you engage in something and you justify it, because you're going to justify it, right? Even if you engage, even if you justify it in some way, it was my idea from the what it doesn't matter. At some point in time, it's not, maybe it never bites you fiscally, but some part of you is going to die.
Right.
And
well, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Like everyone's like, oh, this is a copy of this person's plate carrier. Why? Because you have that plate carrier? Well, then that plate carrier is a copy of this plate carrier.
Sure, innovation happens in degrees. It doesn't happen. It very rarely happens in leaps and bounds.
They all fit a 10 by 12 sappy, so or a plate, whatever size dinner plate you have. It's a 10 by 12. It's going to fit in one of these plate carriers.
Yes,
they're all the same. Buy what works for you and how you want it to look aesthetically. They're not. This person didn't copy this person, or this person didn't copy this person. You can only make a wheel so many different ways. You can make it in widths. It's still going to be round, unless you buy those stupid, weird hexagonal-looking fucking wheels. But in this industry, we're so protective of certain things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're used to the issue of, I present an idea and then, because I can I present an idea, I don't have the full ability to manufacture it, and I present it to somebody, and then they take that product and they run with it, and then they say it's their own, and then you get into. I mean, we're wary of these things. I get it. I think more closer to home on this one is the social media thing of like, just be okay with who influences you. That happens. Like I don't know. It's almost like we have, there's this like this I'm going the wrong direction with this one. I should let it go. But it's this everyone has to be original. Like yes, there's a cry for originality, and some of it is other people's influence, and we just and so it's a tricky, not tricky, it's just, it is what it is. So
yeah, I mean, we just have to stick to like whatever it is that you make, you create, you design, you endorse, whatever it is that you're pushing. Just stick to your brand. Don't worry about other people's bullshit. Don't worry about the noise.
It takes time. It's effort. It's genuine effort. Yes.
Yeah, and if you truly stick to that and you plug at it and you make that work, that piece will.
Yeah. Well, so like
that will definitely grow long term. And I think a lot of people get so caught up in this, like we said earlier, the noise and the he said, she said, and the drama and everything like that, rather than
But we also said we do that to ourselves, as in like I do it to myself. It's not your fault that I think about these things.
No, it's your own personal fault for thinking about those things.
Yes. And so moving forward on that one being, we can talk about the microcosm of the brands, right? And you and me could engage in what we could refer to as elitism, and have the audacity to publish a podcast and a show like this where all we do is we talk about insider information. You know what I mean? And with no illusions, illusions that we're not putting on display like a fishbowl all of the little things going on in our milieu, our circle, without or knowing that people are watching it, but also knowing that we're within and they're without. Like you could do something like that and it would be arrogant and foolhardy and stupid, and it would be dismissive and disgusting and probably disappointing, because you'd find out that all the insider information is less about, whatever, we can
Yeah.
go you could get super, oh, it's not about what it's about who you know. Okay, that's not a sufficient statement, but fine. It's not about the whatever.
It
But
works for them.
but at the same time, um, in the sense of diet, you are what you listen to, you are what you eat. In the same sense, gun culture is notoriously notorious, in my opinion, notorious for externalizing internal problems. It's not my fault that it's not my fault that I sit here on my phone for you know, let me bring up on my phone what my let's see if I can figure out how to do this.
Your app times and things like that.
Yeah, I can bring it up, right? The last week, daily average 4 hours and 48 minutes. Last week average 7 hours and 23 minutes. Right? So I know what I'm using that for, because I when I listen to things, I tend to listen to them on my phone, to like podcasts and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So like if I'm going to listen to something, yeah, it's and the aggressive majority of that time is on YouTube. And so when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm working on something and I'm not writing something, I'm listening to something on YouTube. And then instead, so like I could be listening to them on Spotify, I could be listening to them on Apple Podcasts, but for whatever reason, YouTube is kind of my go-to. So if I blame gun culture for the amount of time that I spent last week on YouTube, it's my fault. I did it. Yeah, sure, it's there, but I did it to myself, right? Now, like, I'm going to justify this. I'm going to justify my screen time by saying, in many ways, what I'm participating is here. This is my space, right? I'm listening to things. I'm listening to information. Last week I listened to, I probably listened to, like, let's see, what did it say for last week? My total hours on YouTube last week was 40 hours. Probably 25 of that, I did an entire work schedule last week on YouTube, and probably 25 of that was radios.
Dang.
Just on like radio, like signal intelligence and radio stuff, and then it's affiliated things with like the this accident, or this signal, the this intel brief or whatever. And so like, and how much of it was overt, whatever. But again, I'm going to try to justify it, because I have to, I'm on air, I have to, like, oh well, I listened to this much. However, if I and I recognize that if I blame social media, and this is the example of social media in gun culture, being, if I blame the algorithm, the app is designed to keep me on it as much as possible. It was successful, but I am an agent. I'm an individual. That's my responsibility. It's,
You
you
don't
know what
have
I
to
mean?
open the app, right? You
I
don't
don't
have to.
have I don't have to open the app. I don't have to engage in the clout. I don't have to engage in the hype. I don't have to engage in
But
the
if you,
drama.
but if we can all accept that and like understand, we are all agents of the demise of this, and how can we find a better way of making this better for our community and for the industry? I'm sure we'll put up some better ideas.
I think we're
I,
doing that. I think we're doing that in real time. My
I think
opinion
we
is,
are.
yeah, I
I
think.
mean, one of the big things that I've had to start to do, which I thought was absolutely comical and stupid at one stage, and I saw it and I liked it because I liked the aesthetics of it. I went out and bought a stainless steel magnetic fridge clock. It's like a little round thing, looks like a nest, right?
Mhm.
Type in 30 minutes, click on it, it starts counting down. I put that on my desk, phone aside, and I just bust for as long as possible as I can. When that countdown time stops, okay, cool. Do I reset my time for another 30 minutes to keep working because I'm in a flow, or do I get my 5 minutes of maybe quickly see what's happening in the feeds, make sure everything's okay, restart up my timer again? I found doing that where I spend more time, and I increase my time too, going from 30 to 40 to an hour to 2 hours, and I cannot touch anything unless it's a work call that comes in. The potential that I get out of my daily time, because time for me is highly valuable. Being a father, having kids, wife, and everything like that, time is so valuable, and I am I fail at that a lot of the times where, you know, you get wrapped up in your phone, your kids are playing around, hey, daddy, do this, and you're scrolling the feed. We're all guilty of it. We are all guilty of it. So having this allows me to make sure I get what I need done, and then I get where that time where I can't, you know, create or can't bank, I actually get to use appropriately. It's like, especially with the family. And I think doing those things too has helped me like stay out of a lot of the drama and bullshit within the industry, like trying to work on things that are going to be beneficial, like creating those things. But yeah, it's crazy with that, what we chase in the social media aspect within this industry, because, you know, we're all driven by looks. You know, I like kit and gear. I like looking at all those things. I mean, I could spend hours on end looking at all the Pharaohs and Spiritus and Shore Concepts, all of their photos. I always want to look close. I don't care about the guns and the helmets and everything, but I like how everything's laid out. Like, you know, what are they running on kit and gear? What nylons are they using now? How are they setting up their plate carriers? All of those sort of things, because those things help with when you create other brands, or like, what is an aesthetic? It's all of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I definitely see positivity within the industry. You know, there are people wanting change, and they want good change.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it too as like, you know, it's how do I say this? I think of it too in the sense of, what do you do when you're in the military? You complain. Command's dumb, shifts long, feet hurt, drink water, drive on. What do you do when you're in gun culture? Complain. They're taking your guns. Brace ruling, shills. Sure. What do we do about gas prices? We complain. We don't build a pipeline, you know, whatever, right? And it's like I'm okay. Like, I understand that there are problems. Not complaining is not necessarily ignoring the problem. And gun culture is in a good place, and this attributes to its closeness to the soul. You started with your conversation. You started a lot of this on, you came from Australia. Australia has guns, but they're limited and they're controlled in a certain way. You know, America stands out in the world. Even people who have ulterior motives are aware that America has guns.
Correct.
And even people within America who have ulterior motives or wicked motives are aware that there are people who have guns, and those people with those guns would do things. You know, there are things. You know, even people who have evil intentions are aware that their actions will probably have consequences. Sure, but the thing that it works in our favor is that we're talking about subjects that are important to us in more ways than just the aesthetic. The aesthetic points to something, and then we think about that idea, and then we build that idea out into, sometimes it's authentic, and sometimes it's a lie. Sometimes it's a post hoc justification. We sort that through. And so gun culture in America is actually the result of a set of virtues that we hold, that if we abandon those virtues, gun culture will not stand. And if we try to build gun culture without those virtues, it will not stand. This is why the idea of the NRA is so distasteful in our generation, is because it's a paper tiger. Even though they've done plenty of good, I'm not just throwing them completely under the bus, but the criticism that people have for the NRA is not that it functions as the boogeyman that they're portrayed as by political conversation. It's that they are not the boogeyman that they're portrayed as. They don't have the pull and the clout that they claim they present themselves to. And so the idea of something being false or a betrayal of what it should be is either one of two things. It is what you believe in is a lie, or you are or it's pointing towards something, a value, a virtue, a thing that's important, that you have an unfulfilled potential that you can that is there to be made, to be had. And it's like, I know that's way too abstract.
No. I mean, I think back in the day, the NRA probably could have been the hero we all wanted. the Batman analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it got to the point where there was so much money coming in because we all saw the attack on the guns and everything like that. So it became a cash grab in a sense. No different in Ukraine right now. That's my own personal opinion. Do I think the NRA has done good? Yes. And getting people into that? Yes. But a lot of the people who are in the NRA have been fathered down, right?
Yeah, they've gotten.
There are a lot of people who, my daddy's daddy, great daddy's was all part of the NRA. So I'm part of the NRA.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I have an NRA membership? No, I don't. Do I see any benefit of having an NRA membership? No, I don't.
Mm-mm.
The only time I ever had it was to get into the NRA conference because you need to have it for that.
Yep.
Other than that, I don't pay into it, don't want it. I don't see it any good. Now, will I give money to FPC and those guys who actively fight? Yes. I think those guys are definitely more beneficial. 100% more beneficial.
One step closer to you. Yeah.
Yep. I also think NRA's just got to that sheer size where they're so damn big and it's much easier for money to get lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bureaucracy.
Yep. And there are guys who run NRA who are worth millions of dollars, and I don't see them doing millions of dollars worth of work.
Yeah.
Even running big corporations like that. But yeah, it's neither here nor there. I think more education in our industry is definitely needed, just to grow it, just to make those sort of things.
When you think of more education, what would be something that you would want to see more of when it comes to education? Right? We have people talking about kit and gear. We've got people reviewing guns. We got people starting to do classes. We got people starting to talk about, or we got not people starting classes, but you have, when you talk about education, you have two models. You have, it's free and it's on YouTube, and hopefully somehow I get paid, or give me money and I'll teach you a course, right? Okay, I'm going to teach a class this week on directional finding with radios combined with Battle Drill 1 Alpha, which will look kind of like Ranger School, and it's going to cost you $3,000. It's hypothetical, right?
Right.
So what do you mean? What is education that you think? Where do you think we could do better, and how would you, or no, even better? What is something that would be consumable information that you would engage in, that would be like, it's worth it?
That's a great question because that relates to me a lot more. So take, for example, a lot of the guys, when I say education, I'm like, don't tell me how to shoot a gun. Okay, that stuff can easily be done. That's buying rounds, going to a range, and shooting and training. Maybe go take a couple of classes, whatnot, doing those things. That just becomes repetitive. You learn to shoot, you learn to shoot, you learn to shoot multi-caliber, shoot your guns, those sort of things. But if we're going to talk about the industry, the 2A industry as a whole, and other things that play into that, government unrest, the riots, for example, and all of those things, most of us would have a plate carrier or something like that has a plethora of gear on there that looks cool because hype, but do we truly know how to use all of these things? Like you see, guys, I got a phone mount on a Juggernaut case and it looks cool. What are you running on your phone that makes you an asset?
It's a hard question. How do you answer? It is
what
something.
Radio are you using that makes you an asset? And do you know how to use this? Now, if you ran up to somebody and they're like, I've got a radio, I'm like, can you quickly share? Do you know how to get onto the right frequencies? Do you know how to do those things? More importantly, do they know how to? And if they don't, are you able to troubleshoot that so you become an asset to grow that, so now your radio can talk to theirs and so on and so forth. Like those are the sort of things. So for example, our good friends over at Mojave Repeater, I saw what he was doing and I thought that was fantastic. Giving myself range and being able to bring further range in from other radios, so then it makes my network bigger.
Yes.
And understanding those sort of things, spent some time with him, slid into the DMs, got onto the phone, had a Zoom, learned as much as I could, took a bunch of downloadable, PDF docs from him, and it was phenomenal. That's what I needed. And then I just spend, the 40 minutes every couple of days, learn a little bit more, do a little bit more, tinker a little bit more. That makes me an asset to comms. So now I know how to use those sort of things. And I play with them on a regular basis. So I can flick on my radios, I can do that. Second thing too, go into the GPS, understand those things, mapping, software. You give a guy a map and a compass, is he really going to know how to use it in today's society?
Is he a butter bar, or is he a tried and true enlisted guy?
Exactly. Like, do you know how to use a compass? Do you know how to orientate a map to the ground? Do you know the difference between magnetic north and so on and so forth? Is this the northern hemisphere compass or the southern hemisphere compass? basic things. So,
Mm-hmm.
but can you understand that? Do you know how to use a grid reference? Do you know how to actually figure out your grid scale so you actually know what your distance is on a map?
Okay.
Little things like that. So, and that's why guys like, and I mean, a lot of the stuff that is, let's say, take Darcy, for example, Direct Action Resource Center. I know he teaches a lot of really cool classes out there, and a lot of that stuff isn't going to be shared with the public because it's secure knowledge. But he does a course out there that is highly relatable to our industry and being an asset to your community, family,
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. Understand the urban sustainment course.
Yes.
Learning how to collect water, maybe learning a little bit about patrol drills, setting up checkpoints.
Yeah, I've heard excellent things about it.
It's a phenomenal course. I plan on getting out there at least doing them 1 or twice this year. Currently with a new project I'm on, I'm probably going to be out there anyhow for it.
Good for you. It's fantastic.
Water purification, the conversation we were having earlier. I mean, people like Palestine, Ohio right now, we've got a fucking train derailment and bullshit happening up there, and it's all being swept under the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I live in Toledo. Lake Erie has green algae all the time. The day of my wife's wedding reception, we had a green algae bloom, and we weren't allowed to turn on the water on our reception.
Yeah.
So we called the restaurant going, we've got this. And they're like, don't worry, we cooked all the food the day beforehand. So I'm like, great. So then I had to go to a bottle shop, bought like 60 bags of ice, couldn't make the cocktails. So we just went and just bought cases and cases of beer and wine. But like that happened instantaneously.
Yes.
So then do I go and have to fight all the assholes going to the local shopping center and trying to buy out water? Or am I able to get water from home, from my taps, filter it through a system that makes it safe,
mm-hmm.
and then I can have it? Is that being an asset? Or do I then have to go and put myself into an austere environment with people fighting over cases of water and spritzers and all that sort of shit? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's more exciting. It would make a it would make a better TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but it would make a better TikTok video.
But like,
you know what I mean? Like,
do I have to put myself into that environment where I'm like, I don't need to be there because I already have a system in place that is going to get me out of that sort of trouble. So learning those sort of things. So like communications, one, it's an open network. It's easy to do. Water purification, it's cost effective. It's super easy to learn. You can build.
Yeah, but you're not answering the question, Zach. You're not answering the question. The question that I asked you was, what is something that you would engage in that you would go, this is interesting to me? Because you are on the one level, because I'm right there with you. I'm sitting here thinking, going, you know what? I want to go practice my land navigation.
So here's the thing: is you can teach a man you can give a man a fish, or you can teach him to fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if that man doesn't want to learn,
but what do you want to learn? That's the question that I'm asking.
I want to learn everything that I can to make myself an asset.
Yes, self-sustainability, its values, its focus. Yes. So, and that's kind of what I'm saying, is that like, you're right. I'm not criticizing you as in like, I hope it doesn't seem like I'm throwing you under the bus in that sense, but I'm asking you a question that's a genuine question of like, you know what? Sometimes I just want to learn about direction finding with a radio. I'm not saying so. That's my shtick right now. That's kind of.
No, that's valid. So take a toolbox. This is probably something that I use in marketing. If I don't have the right tools in the toolbox, I can't get my job done. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. I've got a gun. Grab one off the back wall. Totally fine. That's only one tool in my toolbox. Okay. That's going to get me out of shit hits the fan. But then the next thing from that is, if I'm with my family and I need to like get other things, can I build shelter? Can I do fire? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I create this? Can I touch base with the rest of my family? Do I know how to do all of those things? Do I have all of these tools in my toolbox to make me an asset? And if I don't, how can I get hold of them?
And am I able to deal with the not existential crisis, but it's the closest word that I have right now, of being fully prepared and never having the sharpest knife in the toolbox and never having.
If I grab a radio off someone, can I use it?
Yes. I mean, are you able, and then are you able to direct those things towards something productive?
Correct. You take for example, 99% of guys. That's probably a high number. Let's say 80% of guys. They run an IFAK on their gun belt, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Can they use half the shit in that IFAK kit?
Probably. I mean, I'm optimistic. I think
Optimistic's good.
I think most. I think to
you can
some.
probably use 50% of the stuff, and then do you know how to use it? Do you know how to put on a chest seal properly?
Yes, but I mean, I have, like I have training. So what what I'm saying is that the distance of going from let's just take my assessment of gun culture, right? Let's just say this is all hypothetical numbers, but let's say of people who are participating in gun culture, someone that I could look at and go, because I have a investment in the community, I can look at a person and make a series of assumptions based on how they stand, what they're wearing, what they're carrying, who they're, and how they're their posture, which is just how we do things. I can make some observations about people. But within gun culture, let's just say 80% of people within our milieu have an IFAC on their kit. Okay. And of the 80%, 50% are proficient. So 50% are proficient, 30% are well beyond proficient. They're well skilled, and that leaves 20% who are like, no idea. I know that I have gauze. I don't know how to pack a wound. I know that they just carry it for the symbology. That 20% can be brought into the 50% very quickly by the other 50%.
100%. And I mean, take North American Rescue, stop the bleed classes. They're a very basic thing to do. Fuck YouTube. Let's not get around the bush on that. Do I want some guy who's done a 3-minute video on how to stick in a fucking, a chest needle? No, but if he's learned it, watched it enough, and he does it with like conviction and it works, dude, slap it in there, get it in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not endorsing that sort of medical, training, but for the little things like that is understanding all these things. Yeah, cool. You put it on your kit. Okay, you can make holes with the gun, but can you stop those holes?
Yes. Okay.
Like, going out and doing that course, and just because you've done it once, refresh it again next year. Like, are we truly trying to involve our skill set? Now, having a gun is one thing. Can you shoot paper targets as Lucas would do on a flat range? That's cool. Can you change on the fly? Can you fix all your jams? Can you do all those things? Do you have a complete field maintenance kit with you? Like, if you bust a bolt, firing pin, everything like that. Can you replace all those things in the gun? Can you do any of that basic maintenance yourself? Like, learning all of those sort of things, I think it's all about skill sets. It's all about skill sets. It's all about that toolbox. It's, guys, put in as much as you can into that. We went through that phase of everybody had a Baofeng radio. I run Motorola's predominantly on my main plate carriers. Yes, I have a 152. That's probably for photo work because it looks cool.
Well, I mean, I have radios, but I have no one to talk to. That's a problem that I'm sure people have, right?
Here's the thing: is you can talk with these radios to a lot of people. Find guys in your community. Find other guys like myself.
It's tough.
I'll set up a repeater. We'll find repeaters. Yeah. We can get it to go out that way. That's the cool thing about ham radios is you can reach that sort of distance.
And no one's gonna do it for you. I mean, that's it's the other side of the statement is no one's coming to save you. True, but no one's holding you back, and that is a gut check for me, of going, oh man, I can make excuses, but
if shit hit the fan right now, right? What are you grabbing? Like, do you have? And I'm not saying this is, I'm not trying to delve into that prep world bullshit. But does your wife know exactly what to come down into your safe space or your office or wherever you keep your shit? Know what to grab?
Does my wife trust me?
Well, that's also the other thing. So, like, I mean, that I have 2 kit rollers. They are always packed. They are always there. So if I go to training or anything like that, they're my only 2 kit rollers I have. I have a bunch of other stuff, but they're the first 2 you ever grab. If I ever go up to Michigan or if I go with family, it's one of those kit rollers always with me in the car, and it has everything. It's the same thing inside of my car. I have complete signal kits. I have complete road kits. Like, it's just those little things. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're worrying about the worst. No, I'm not. If I stop on the side of the road because a car's flipped over, I've got a complete signal kit. I'm not worried about, I'll bust flares down the road, put a strobe on the top of the car, and I can provide first aid at once. I'm being an asset. Now, whether I need all this stuff later on, sure, but I've always got it for at those needs. And I think, just because, it's my Second Amendment to have a gun. Yeah, it's your amendment to have a gun. That's right, but it's more than just having the gun. Yeah, just because you got a gun doesn't mean you're an asset.
Yes,
just means you're gonna send rounds for the next 5 minutes until you run out of ammunition. Then what good are you?
I hope. Yeah, I mean, I know I've brought it up a couple of times, but did you listen to that conversation between Chris Craighead and Mike Jones? Yeah, that was. I think Chris did a really good job. No, I'm not. I'm saying I think he did a good job. By the end of that, I was like, this is a conversation that I am glad I listened to.
He is an asset.
Yeah.
And let's not beat around the bush. He has had millions and millions of dollars thrown at him in
Oh, for
training.
sure. Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, he is a toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
He was trained to be a toolbox, to have
Mm-hmm.
all of those skills and all those assets in his hand. But he's also one of those guys too who just didn't let his tools get rusty.
Yes. Yeah, this is true, and he was able to take a tool and aim it at a task. And that's a good thing. Like that's
Exactly.
that's I think that's the big I think that is actually the real conversation that's happening within gun culture is not whether or not you need a Mark 18 or an SR-25. It's what am I even aiming at? And it's never easy, but like for me and what I can answer in my question is that I am trying to have conversations with people within gun culture that are focused on the things that we think are right and true and good, and right and true and good. Like this is an honest answer, right and true and good. And on top of that, I am interested in um, being. I am interested in providing an idea of value enough that people would would say I gained something from this, that they're not confused about what they got out of it, even though it's an abstract object. It's an abstract object that and that it would be. I would bring something to market that was of value enough that someone would want to support the channel. Or so, it sounds like a plug, so I'm gonna kind of let it die. But the point saying is that like that I can go to my friend and I can be a part of gun culture and see things moving forward. It's a little ambitious, but on top of that, it's on top of that, um, yeah, it's when things happen, which they will happen, and they are happening. That whether there's a natural disaster or a man-made situation, I can my wife and my family can look at me and say he's an asset. That's a valuable to me. That it's what I mean.
I
That's
mean,
one
I
thing.
think I think a lot of the guys like don't get. And this probably goes back to everything. Just don't get tied up in the hype. Okay, no one cares about the fucking DNC patch you have on or that limited edition $25 Chinese duffel bag that you have with a cool print on it. No one cares about those things. If they mean something to you, dude, whatever. That's cool. You do that. But that
Yeah.
doesn't make you an asset. That doesn't make you an asset because when shit hits the fan, I'm not going to rely on any of that crap. So go beyond that. Go
hmm
beyond that. And it becomes, I wouldn't say it's not a lonely road, but like you said, you're the only person who's going to change this, right?
It's not a lonely road. It requires introspection, and it requires introspection in the type that says, are my desires authentic or am I lying to myself?
Yeah.
And not it's not is it's not is the audience gonna figure out that I'm a fake? No. It's not is Zach gonna tell me that I'm a liar? No. It's do I believe what I'm saying, or am I saying it to avoid the thing that I believe? And am I
Mhm.
when am I buying a gun because,
That's very philosophical.
well, I mean, look at, yeah, that's me, right? Oops.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we worry about what people think.
Yeah,
Um,
because we're social creatures. We're people.
right,
You
but
you are not, if you are truly don't give a shit what anybody thinks, that is called a sociopath. And we put them in boxes so that they cannot hurt people.
but when it comes to that time where push comes to shove, if you can insert yourself or your knowledge or that transfer of knowledge in the right way at that time,
Mhm.
that's 100% like invaluable. And I think it's those little things like, you know, take a medical class once a year, $200. It's nothing. There's
That's
your
good.
there's your 5 coffees, right? 5 fucking coffees or whatever it is. So
Mhm.
take a medical class once a year. Go and do a training class with another firearms guy. Okay, be cautious on that. Like, try to stick to the tried and true guys who actually know what they're doing. Don't just go to your local gun range and shoot with Tom, Dick, and Harry. YouTube. Instead of watching shitty crap on YouTube that we all like to watch something that's educational. Learn something. I mean,
Mhm.
we all guarantee 99% of the guys in our industry all have bayofangs. Fucking learn how to use them.
Yeah, it's good. But I mean, don't maybe this is where I'm at right now, and it's kind of as we're wrapping the show up. It's I've found out that I have observed myself do this where I am waiting for somebody on the internet to give me permission to learn how to do a thing, which is really weird. Let me rephrase. Let me use this as an example. It's like you learning how to use a radio is when I'm learning how to use a radio and I'm learning how to do things with like maybe SDRs or stuff like that. It's like um I am waiting. I am putting artificial barriers in front of me. Like I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't have anybody to do anything with. I don't have it. It's like and the answer is no. I do. There are people that I know that I can talk to. But
But
what
also,
I'm saying
by
is,
the time you get around to wanting to learn all of those things,
yeah, and so like and so what I'm saying in this one, what I'm trying to make this argument is that many of the barriers that are in the way that are preventing me from doing the thing that I think I should do are barriers that I'm putting up, and I'm using excuses and I'm making lies about it, and I need to correct that. That's a me problem, and so I can learn from that. And I think and it's just it's an interesting one to see. It's not an interesting one. It's then there are also things like it's expensive. I can't just go out and buy another mid to high end SDR right now. I can't. Okay, so now I create inside my head this idea that I don't need to learn anything about radios until I can frivolously afford the high tech stuff. I don't need to learn how to shoot until I can afford a Noveski. I don't need to learn how to land nav until I have a $3,000 GPS unit. I don't need to learn how to and I think about myself, and this is where kind of that part comes from is I've looked at myself, and I've looked at myself in the past and said I have made so many excuses for the things that I should learn how to do because I don't have the current thing. And that's where the clout chasing problem comes in, is
right?
that I can't go outside and do anything until I have DTNVGs or GPNVGs now. I don't have quad tubes, so I can't be this. And it's like, no, none of us believe that. We know it. We don't. It's an artificial belief that we kind of hold collectively. I can get rid of
And
it, move on.
we're just going back to that original statement: don't be poor, right? So from back in the
Don't
start,
don't
don't
have a poverty mindset. Don't have the attitude that you will always be the downtrodden or the
yeah,
or
no, dude, an SDR with a cable to your phone is going to set you back $35 max.
Yep.
Max with
Yep.
software. I can show you how to do that. Then the next thing after that, as for rifle, dude, you got a great fucking rifle. Do you need a Noveski? No, Noveski's just a label. Do they make great rifles? Sure. Johnny's always made great rifles, rest his soul. You don't need a $3,000 Noveski to shoot rounds. You don't. You can do that with literally any rifle if it's maintained and looked after and built well.
Mm-hmm.
Built well. As for night vision's great to see at night until the batteries go flat and you're shit out of luck. Or until someone hits you with enough light, it's really no good there. Or
Mm-hmm.
it's just bad weather. I mean, night vision is not to be hidden, it's to see. So, I mean, you throw up enough IR light, that's going to affect fucking anybody. So, I mean, I think the big thing is just getting the basic fundamentals down. A lot of guys, oh, I need a really good high-end GPS system. Sunto Compass, buddy,
Mm-hmm.
$29. Do better than a GPS every single day of the week. Less learning, ain't gonna go flat. Works at night. I don't have to worry about batteries.
Mm-hmm.
So when you learn all of those like basic things, if you become proficient in those simple skill sets, when you transition to the higher end stuff, the learning curve becomes greatly decreased. And I think that's where a lot of these guys get all this, the cool guy stuff, like all the gear and no idea, and have no idea how to use it. I mean, coming from military background, of course, you start with PPS 14s, AMVA 7s, 9s, and then you go into maybe 31 alphas if your unit was so inclined to have that budget.
Yep, 31 alphas were introduced to our unit after I left. I was using PVS 15s and then ANVS 9 or 6s. So I was
Right. So,
using
like, I mean,
green tube green phosphor dual tube
yeah, I
night vision.
mean,
Now,
greens, everyone's like, oh, white phosphor is great. Dude, anything that you can see at night is great. Thermal's great, green's great, white's great, as long as you can fucking see. You know what also is really great? Flashlight. That can see very well. Of course, you lose the element of surprise when you give away your position, but still can see with it, right?
Yeah, the night vision is the big what for, like
Yeah, and I mean,
and so don't, we know it, don't base your personality on a microcosm of your life experience.
exactly. And like, I mean, for some of
It's
us, I don't know, I'm leaning the wrong way. There's one, oops.
Yep.
Yeah, there's one set there and there's the other set there. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's $20,000 in NVGs right there. So
No,
it's
we have, I got night vision too, and so like I get it. I think of it interestingly as there's this element, and we'll get ready to close on this one. I have one question that I want to ask you, but I don't know if we have time for it.
ask it.
And but it's the thing about it is we can see within people who have been in the military who have based their entire life's identity on one event. We see when you're in the military people who their entire identity is who they were in high school on the football team. We see people who we see it in ourselves and we see it in other people, and gun culture as a whole. We do the same thing. We base our entire personality and character on a hypothetical event that is an apocalypse that may or may never happen, while we neglect the day to day. And when I say we, I mean myself, right? I am prepared for the apocalypse, but I don't take the trash out on Wednesday or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like these kind of things, like and so if the world came to if the economy came to a crash, I'd be just fine because I could pump water and build a home and chop a tree down and fight my neighbor or whatever. But the world isn't collapsing, and is my house in order now? That's a good question. And so fine. And we can see it in examples, but then I'm looking at it, and again, you've inspired me to be a little bit more self-critical today, also recent events. And so there's that, but then so the question that I have for you to segue into closing is, there's this idea that I see that's prevalent in gun culture, and that is the idea of division of labor. You've got four friends. One's a breacher, one's a sniper, one's a commo guy, one's a medic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the same time, we're decentralized, so we're not dependent on the government. We're not dependent on whatever. And so, is this idea, this illusion, this sort of video game role playing game, Dungeons and Dragons esque party member concept of, we've got four friends, and he's the sniper, and he's the breacher, and he's the medic, and I'm the leader, or whatever. Is that an illusion, or is that sense of the division of labor even real? Is it, and is that in conflict with decentralization? So can one person be the jack of all trades? Should every person be the jack of all trades, or should people focus on hyper specialization?
Well, no, I think. Do you know the jack of all trades saying?
A master of one. It's not master of none. The original one by Benjamin Franklin was jack of all trades, master of one.
Jack of all trades is a master of none, but still better than a master of one.
Oh, I am wrong then. I stand corrected.
So the idea for me, and it goes back to my basic fundamental of, look at the toolbox. Okay, you're a breacher. I'm a medic. He's calmed. He's a shooter. One of those drops. Well, we're fucking shit out of luck somewhere, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that is installed heavily within certain SF units. I'm going to speak heavily on behalf of my country's one, the SAS, where, yes, guys are specialized. They are specialized in an aspect, but they are highly skilled in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it comes to breaching, whether it comes to shooting, whether it comes to charges, whether it comes to medical, yes, you will always have a dedicated medic. You might be a little bit more skilled, but when it comes to the fundamentals of everything that is on someone's kit and gear, these guys are pretty damn good. Same thing when it comes to shooting. You're all skilled in that. When it comes to comms, I can't rely on one guy. You should be able to all work your radios.
Mm-hmm.
So the division of labor, as you're saying it, I think, it's cool. It's cool for like visual effect and gaming effect. I'm the breacher of the team. They can call me up to blow up doors. How often are you going to blow up a door? How often are you going to make a hole in a wall? Few and far between. So, but having the understanding of how to do some of those things, maybe not relevant in civilized society, but at least medical, at least shooting, at least navigation, at least comms, electrical, understanding how to, run electrical currents and motors and breaking those sort of things down. You know, that sort of stuff. I mean, if everybody had those sort of skill sets, then you're not relying on one person to focus on something for it to be successful. You're not putting all of your eggs into one basket per se.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd rather be with a bunch of guys, and you know, unfortunately, due to the neighborhood I live in, there's a lot of guys here who probably can change the tire on the car. So I would rather be a jack of all trades, and have 99% efficiency in all of the tasks that I can do and perform before failure, than only being good at one.
Yes. I think I appreciate the way that you're breaking it down, because it's been kind of a question that's been boiling in the back of my head about, like, you know, I can think of it in a fiction sense of like, oh, you got your team together. Oh, you know, the helicopter lands in the back 40 and he says, you know, we need you for a secret mission. And you're like, cool, I get to pick a team, rugged veteran, you know. Isn't that Rambo? I don't care. So you know, you have that illusion, and then you also have its opposite, which is the prepper who's good at everything, and neither of those are sufficient.
Yeah, and I
But
think it's like when you create those communities, let's say you have your 10 buddies and you guys go shoot regularly, then it just comes down to each one of you guys holding each other accountable for like knowing things like, hey, can we just do a land nav course one weekend and figure out which one of us don't know how to use a fucking compass or a GPS? And a lot of your buddies will probably think that's fucking stupid. Don't tell me I know how to use these things. But do you? It's okay. Show me how to use this compass. We'll go from here to here. And the best thing too is we'll set a waypoint. So get me here to here, and we're not going to take a path. We're not going to take the roads. We're going to go from here to here across, you know, like a small mountain range or a national park nearby. Yes. And you have to get there and then test that via GPS. Do it via compass, and then test it via GPS and see how far off you are. I mean, that's the best way of doing it. And if everybody can do those sort of things, that becomes like a fun activity.
Yeah, or traverse the city that you live in on foot in a day.
Yeah.
You know, traverse the city. If you live in a city, traverse the city that you live in it. Take a Saturday, have somebody do it with you, and go from one side of the city to the other on foot. Yeah. Whether you have, you know, elements of you can choose your own adventure. How much public transportation are you going to use? How much public transportation are you not going to use?
Right.
And, you know, and that would be, you know, it's like, it sounds so trivial, but like, spot how many cameras you can find. You know, how many cameras can you find walking from one side of the city to the other? And that would be, you know, and how long does it take you? And how long does it's an interesting question. It's a project that I've kind of wanted to do for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think like answering that question, like just wholeheartedly, and what I truly believe in is, you know, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but better than a master of one. I think it's really resounding. It's like, yeah, you know, I'm really great at shooting the 6.5 at 1,000. Awesome. That's not going to work inside of a building. So like learning everything else from that and all the other skill sets that are going to make you an asset. And I'm not talking like a tactical asset, like learning all of that stuff, but just an asset in general.
Yes, the person who has only one skill set actually ends up being a liability, because to a hammer everything looks like a nail, and you only have one solution for every type of problem, and so that you only see one kind of problem, and therefore in any other scenario you're either at best useless, or at worst observing something for other than what it is. You know, if you're
just twiddling your thumbs, you're waiting around twiddling your thumbs for it's your time to step into
or worse, you're misinterpreting an environment for something it absolutely isn't, and then you're turning it into something it isn't, right? This is the monomania problem. You're the intel guy who knows about whatever. You're the intel guy, you're the 5th generational warfare guy or whatever, and and it becomes so rooted in you that you become it becomes a monomania, and you start interpreting otherwise banal events as grand machinations of the evil dictator, and then now you're perceiving the world incorrectly. Your friends who depend on you for intelligence or information are now misguided, and congratulations, it wasn't a plot. You're now being tricked by the FBI into trying to kidnap Governor Whitmer, and you're actually the bad guy of the story. And congratulations, like it's the problem. So
100%.
So the worst situation, the worst possible outcome of you being hyper specialized is that you end up being easily manipulated and fooled into somebody else's plan, and then you become the pawn of their movement, and
Actually,
you are no longer the actor or the agent that you think you are.
you're no longer an asset.
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer an asset. You become
You're a liability. Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that.
Well, I think that's an excellent note to end this show on.
It does.
And I'd love to have you on again, and then maybe next time I will be able to be more mechanically punctual when it comes to timing. But Zach,
it's Mondays.
We never did a full introduction of who you are and where you're at right now. Is there anything that you want to plug? Are you that public of a person, or do you tend to?
No, I'm usually not that public of a person.
Okay.
I've usually always been cat. I like to stay a little bit more in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sounds very spyish. No, because I don't think it's really relevant either way. I do work for a 2A gun company based out of San Antonio, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They make hard use blasters for Patriots by Patriots. If you guys don't know what that plug is, I'm sure you guys can figure it out.
I'm going to be in your neck of the woods, I think, Saturday.
Yeah,
so.
they make great guns.
Mm-hmm.
Cool company. I love what they're doing. They're doing a great thing for the 2A community. They've got a good voice.
Mm-hmm.
Support them if you can. They make awesome stuff. I used to work for a clothing company out of New Jersey. A lot of guys know who they are. Oddie Gear. Love those guys. Big family to me. I helped with a lot of clothing design, but also for a bunch of their newer products. Later on this year, I'll be releasing a female clothing line called Andronica. Designed specifically for the female figure. It's going to be a little bit more specialized, less dykey, less like our typical tactical brands where they take a man's pant and they make it somewhat fit a lady and it just looks like crap. Yeah, this stuff is going to be a really nice high-end apparel, high-end gear, but not stupidly priced.
Yes, the way that
I'm really excited.
Yes, the way that gun culture deals with the fairer sex is a very, 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 very. If you want to talk about toxic, and I'm not talking about toxic masculinity, I'm talking about like, it's an interesting. It's a conversation for another day, and I look forward
100%.
to having. I look forward to having that one, and then we'll figure out how to do it, because again, it's like. I guess the only way that I can think about it is the most frustrating thing about how gun culture approaches women is it just doesn't approach. It's just also forced. It's all so forced. It's either a woman can do everything that a man can do, and don't you dare think otherwise, or I'm a strong independent and I don't need no, or it's like, or it's weird. It's just it's weird how, and this is society as a whole, but it's just so forced.
It is incredibly weird, and one of the big things that I've tried to do is I've tried to align with a lot of the females in the industry. Trying to stay clear of the gun bunnies and just stick to a lot of people who are actually end users, not necessarily like influencers. I work with a lot of agency girls, so a lot of the stuff comes down out of use versus the fashion aspect and everything like that. But super excited when it gets close to the live launch. I'm definitely I'll send you some info. Check it out. But yeah,
I have a wife.
Really perfect. This is my wife's got a big hand in this.
Okay.
Help me get all the fit and feature right. So yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Good. Well then, let's look forward to another conversation. Let's do that.
Definitely.
This year's off to a great start, but I really do appreciate your time here. Thank you for joining us. And so, is there anything else you want to plug before we go?
No, I'm good, man. I'm glad that you're doing this. This is good.
Thank you very much. That is a genuine encouragement that will at least make me through one more day. So I thank you very much.
Man. Keep doing it. It's needed.
Well, then, in conclusion, this is the Redacted Culture Cast. This is the show where we talk about not only the things that we think important, but the values behind them, and how do we get to the philosophy of violence, which isn't necessarily a philosophy that advocates for the use of violence, but rather how do we understand things like culture, violence, guns in an environment that in the environment that we actually live in, which is humanity and reality. So how do we think about it in terms of what is right, what is true, and what is good? Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon, and we will talk to you soon. That being the case, take care.